I remember the exact moment I stopped being their son and became just a wallet with legs. It was a Tuesday, which seems almost too ordinary for the kind of devastation that landed on me that afternoon. I'd just gotten home from a 12-hour shift at the warehouse, my back screaming at me in that familiar way it had been for the last 15 years, and I was looking forward to nothing more than a hot shower and maybe some leftover pasta I'd made the night before. The house was quiet, the way it always was now that Sarah had moved out with the kids, and I'd almost managed to convince myself that the silence was peaceful instead of lonely. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, and I saw my mother's name flash across the screen. I almost didn't answer. The last few conversations we'd had left a bad taste in my mouth, that metallic tang of being asked for something you didn't really have to give. But she was my mother, and old habits die hard. I picked up. "Kevin, honey, I need you to come over tonight. It's important." Her voice had that particular quality to it, the one I'd learned to recognize over 42 years of being her son. It was the voice she used when she needed something but didn't want to admit it outright. The voice that said important when she really meant urgent and urgent when she really meant desperate. "Mom, I just got home. I'm exhausted. Can it wait until tomorrow? Your father and I need to talk to you about something. It's about your sister." I closed my eyes and leaned against the counter. Of course, it was about my sister. It was always about my sister. What did Jenna do now? "Kevin, please. Just come over. We'll order pizza. We can talk like a family." The word family hung in the air between us, heavy with all the things we didn't say. I thought about the pizza, about the pretense of normalcy, about how I'd spend the entire meal watching my parents look at each other with those worried expressions they reserved exclusively for Jenna's problems. I thought about how I'd eventually be asked to fix something that wasn't mine to fix. "Fine. I'll be there in an hour." I should have known better. I should have said no. But I was still operating under the delusion that I was part of a functional family, that my parents loved me and my sister equally, that if I just kept showing up and being the responsible one, eventually someone would notice and appreciate what I'd been carrying. That was my first mistake. The drive to my parents' house took me through the old neighborhood where I'd grown up, past the elementary school where I'd learned to read and the park where I'd scraped my knees and the corner store where I'd bought candy with the meager allowance I'd earned from doing chores. Everything looked smaller now, shabbier somehow, like the whole world had shrunk while I wasn't paying attention. My parents lived in the same ranch-style house they'd bought in 1985, the one with the peeling blue paint and the overgrown lawn that my father could no longer maintain. I pulled into the driveway behind Jenna's brand new SUV, the one she'd bought 2 months ago despite working part-time at a boutique that paid barely above minimum wage. I sat in my truck for a moment, staring at that SUV with its leather seats and navigation system and all the other luxuries I couldn't afford on my salary, and I felt something bitter rise up in my throat. The front door opened before I could knock, and my mother enveloped me in a hug that was too tight, too desperate. She smelled like she always did, like lavender and the cheap perfume she'd been wearing since I was a child, and for a moment I almost forgot why I was angry. "Come in, come in. Jenna's in the living room. We just ordered pizza." I followed her inside, past the family photos on the wall that hadn't been updated in years. There I was at my high school graduation, looking young and hopeful and completely unaware of how the world would treat me. There was Jenna at her wedding, radiant and smiling, the golden child who could do no wrong. There was my father, younger and healthier, holding a fishing trophy he'd won in some local tournament. And there I was again, in the background of a family photo, half smiling like I'd just been told a joke I didn't quite understand. Jenna was curled up on the couch, her phone in her hand, scrolling through something with the kind of distracted disinterest that had become her signature look. She barely glanced up when I walked in. "Hey, Kev." "Jenna." That was the extent of our greeting. We'd never been close, not really. There was too much water under that bridge, too many years of her being praised while I was overlooked, too many times I'd been asked to sacrifice something so she could have everything. The 3-year age gap between us felt more like a canyon, and no amount of family dinners was going to bridge it. My father was in his recliner, the one he'd been sitting in for as long as I could remember, the one with the worn armrests and the permanent indent of his body. He looked older than I remembered, more tired, like the years had been piling up on him faster than they should. He managed a weak smile when he saw me. "Son. Thanks for coming." "Dad." I sat down on the opposite end of the couch from Jenna, keeping my distance. My mother perched on the edge of the recliner's footrest, her hands clasped together like she was praying. The pizza arrived, and we ate in the kind of strained silence that made me wish I'd just stayed home. I could feel something coming, some request that was going to land on my shoulders like a weight I wasn't prepared to carry. After the pizza boxes were cleared away and my mother had made coffee for everyone except Jenna, who was drinking some fancy bottled water, my father cleared his throat and looked at me with those eyes that had always been so hard to read. "Kevin, your mother and I need to talk to you about something important." I figured. "Your sister's been having some trouble." I looked at Jenna, who suddenly found her phone incredibly interesting. "What kind of trouble?" My mother jumped in before my father could answer. "She's gotten herself into some debt." "It's not her fault, really. The economy has been so hard on young people, and she lost her job at the boutique, and..." "She has a new job," I said. "She's been working at that place for 2 months now." "Part-time," Jenna muttered. "It's only part-time. And it doesn't pay enough." "Doesn't pay enough for what?" "Your SUV? Your designer bags? The weekly spa treatments you post on Instagram?" "Kevin, please," my mother said, her voice taking on that pleading quality that made my teeth hurt. "There's no need to be cruel." "I'm not being cruel. I'm asking a legitimate question." "The debt is almost $40,000, my father said quietly. "Credit cards. A couple of payday loans. She got herself in over her head." I stared at them, at this family that had been bleeding me dry for years, and I felt something inside me shift. $40,000. How does someone even accumulate that much debt? "It was a mistake," Jenna said, finally looking up from her phone. "I made some bad choices. I was trying to keep up appearances, and I got carried away." "People make mistakes, Kevin. You've made mistakes. Not $40,000 mistakes." "This is where you come in," my mother said, her voice smooth and practiced like she'd rehearsed this conversation 100 times. "We know you've been saving money. You told us about your account, the one you've been putting money into for years. We were hoping you could help." I felt the air leave my lungs. "Help how?" "Jenna needs to pay off her debts. The interest is killing her. She can't even make the minimum payments anymore, and the collection agencies are calling, and she's so stressed she can barely function. We thought, maybe you could use your savings to pay off her debts, and we could set up a payment plan with you. We'd pay you back over time, with interest. It would be like a loan from the family." "A loan," I repeated. "You want me to give Jenna $40,000? "Not give," my father said. "Lend. We'd pay you back. Your mother and I would help. You can barely afford to keep this house. How are you going to pay me back $40,000? "We'd find a way," my mother said. "We're family. We take care of each other." I looked around the room at these people who were supposed to be my family, and I felt something cold settle into my bones. I've been saving that money for 10 years. Every extra dollar I've earned, I've put into that account. I've been planning to use it for a down payment on a house. Sarah and the kids moved out because I couldn't afford to buy something decent, and now you want me to give it to Jenna so she can pay off credit card debt. It's not like you have anyone else to save for, Jenna said, and the words hit me like a slap. You're divorced. The kids are with Sarah. What do you need a house for? I stood up so fast my coffee cup nearly tipped over. You have got to be kidding me. Kevin, sit down, my father said. Let's talk about this calmly. Calmly? You want me to be calm while you ask me to hand over my entire life savings so Jenna can fix the mess she made? The same Jenna who's never held a job for more than a year, who's been given everything she's ever wanted, who still lives in a 2-bedroom apartment she can't afford because she refuses to downgrade. Your sister has had a hard life, my mother said. You don't understand what she's been through. What she's been through? She's never had to work for anything. She's never had to struggle. She's never had to choose between paying the electric bill and buying groceries. You've always bailed her out. Every time she's gotten into trouble, you've been right there to fix it. And now you want me to fix it too. We're not asking you to fix everything, my mother said. We're just asking you to help. Help. That's what you always call it? Help. But it's never help, is it? It's always me giving something up so Jenna can have more. It's always me sacrificing so she can be comfortable. It's always me being the responsible one while she gets to be the golden child. That's not true, my father said, but his voice was weak, uncertain. Isn't it? Let me ask you something. When Jenna needed a new car 2 years ago, who helped her buy it? You did. When her rent was overdue, who paid it? You did. When she needed money for a vacation she couldn't afford, who gave it to her? You did. And when it all caught up with her, who did you come to? Me. We've helped you too, my mother said. We've always been there for you. Have you? When I was struggling to make ends meet after the divorce, did you help me? When I was working double shifts and barely seeing my kids, did you offer to help with childcare? When I was trying to save money for a house, did you ever offer to contribute? No. You were too busy funding Jenna's lifestyle. Kevin, you're being dramatic. I'm being honest. There's a difference. The room was silent for a long moment. I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen, the distant sound of a neighbor's dog barking. Everything felt magnified, like my senses had been dialed up to 11. Look, I said, my voice quieter now, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to give you my savings. It's the only thing I have. It's the only security I have left. Jenna needs that money, my mother said. She's your sister. Then you pay it. You've been helping her your whole life. What's 40,000 more? We can't, my father said, and his voice was so small, so defeated, that I almost felt sorry for him. We don't have it. We've given everything we have to help your sister. Our retirement savings are gone. We're living on Social Security and whatever I can make from the part-time job at the hardware store. Then she should declare bankruptcy. She should sell her car and her designer clothes and her apartment and start over. That's what real people do when they get in over their heads. Declare bankruptcy. Jenna laughed, this harsh, ugly sound. You want me to ruin my life? Do you have any idea what bankruptcy would do to my credit? I'd never be able to get a loan again. I'd never be able to buy a house or a car or anything. Welcome to the real world. That's easy for you to say. You don't have anything to lose. I turned to look at her, really look at her, and I saw something I'd never seen before. I saw the calculation behind her eyes. I saw the way she was assessing me, measuring me, figuring out how to get what she wanted. She'd always been good at that. She'd always been able to wrap our parents around her finger, to make them believe that her problems were everyone's problems, that her needs were more important than anyone else's. "You know what?" I said. "You're right. I don't have anything to lose. Because I've already lost everything. I lost my marriage. I lost my kids. I lost my house. I lost all the years I spent working myself to the bone so I could be someone my family could be proud of. And now you want me to lose my savings too? Well, I'm done. I'm not giving you anything." "Kevin, don't say that," my mother said. "We're a family. We stick together. Then start sticking with me for a change. Start treating me like I matter. Start asking me how I'm doing instead of how much money I have. Start being my parents instead of Jenna's personal ATM." I walked out of that house and I didn't look back. I could hear my mother calling after me, could hear the desperation in her voice, but I kept walking. I got into my truck and I drove away and I told myself that I was done. I told myself that I'd finally drawn a line, that I'd finally stood up for myself, that everything was going to be different now. I was wrong. The next few months were a blur of guilt and manipulation and the slow, grinding erosion of my resolve. My mother called me every day, sometimes multiple times a day. Her voice on the answering machine became a fixture in my life, this constant reminder of what I'd done wrong, of how I'd failed my family. "Kevin, honey, I know you're upset, but we really need to talk. Jenna's in a bad place. She's not sleeping, she's not eating, she's just so stressed about all of this. Please call me back. Kevin, your father's blood pressure is up. The doctor says it's stress-related. We're really worried about him. Can you please just come over for dinner? We can talk about everything. We can figure this out. Kevin, I don't understand why you're being so stubborn. Your sister needs help. She's your flesh and blood. How can you turn your back on her? Kevin, we've received some threatening letters from collection agencies. They're saying they're going to garnish Jenna's wages. She's terrified. She can't sleep. She's been having panic attacks. Please, honey, please just call us back." Each message chipped away at something inside me. They were so good at this, so practiced at making me feel like the villain, like I was the one who'd done something wrong. The guilt was like a physical weight, pressing down on me day and night. I'd lie awake at night staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was really as selfish as they made me out to be. But then I'd think about those 10 years of savings. I'd think about all the overtime I'd worked, all the weekends I'd given up, all the times I'd said no to myself because I wanted a better future for my kids. I'd think about the house I'd wanted to buy, the one with the big backyard where I could throw a ball with my sons, the one where they could have their own rooms and their own space and a real sense of stability. And I'd think about how I'd already lost that dream because I'd married the wrong person, because Sarah had decided she wanted something different, something I couldn't give her. I couldn't lose the savings too. I just couldn't. But my mother was relentless. She knew exactly which buttons to push, exactly how to make me feel like the worst son in the world. And eventually, 3 months after that disastrous family dinner, I broke. I met them at a diner near their house, some neutral ground that felt less suffocating than their living room. My mother had chosen the place, of course, and she'd made sure it was one of those old-fashioned establishments with red vinyl booths and fluorescent lighting and the kind of coffee that tasted like regret. We sat in a booth near the back, away from the other customers. My father looked even older than he had 3 months ago, his hands shaking slightly as he picked up his cup of coffee. My mother was tight-lipped and formal, the kind of cold that was worse than anger. And Jenna was there too, dressed in expensive clothes that I knew she couldn't afford, her hair freshly done, her nails perfectly manicured. She looked like she'd just come from a spa day. She looked like she hadn't missed a single meal. "Thank you for coming," my mother said, and her voice was so controlled, so deliberately calm, that I knew I was in trouble. "I thought we should talk," I said. "All of us. Together." "Talk," Jenna said, and there was a sneer in her voice that made my blood run cold. "That's rich coming from you. You haven't talked to us in 3 months. You haven't returned any of Mom's calls." I needed some space. Space. That's what you call abandoning your family. I didn't abandon anyone. I just needed time to think. Time to think about what? Whether you care about us at all. "Jenna, stop," my father said quietly. "We're here to work things out." "Work things out," she repeated, laughing that ugly laugh again. "That's funny. I don't think Kevin wants to work things out. I think he came here to lecture us. To tell us how irresponsible we are. To make us feel small. Is that what you think?" I asked. "That's what I know. You've always looked down on me. You've always thought you were better than me. I've never thought I was better than you. I've thought I was more responsible than you. There's a difference." "Don't you talk to your sister like that," my mother snapped. "She's been through a lot." "Has she?" "Because she looks pretty good to me. She looks like she's been spending a lot of money on herself lately." "That's not fair," Jenna said. "I've been trying to keep up appearances. I've been trying to hold it together. You don't know what it's like to be under this kind of pressure." "Pressure? What pressure?" "You work part-time at a boutique and spend your weekends at the spa. What pressure is that? You just don't get it, do you? You've never understood anything about me. You've never tried to understand." "Jenna, I've spent my whole life trying to understand you. I've spent my whole life cleaning up your messes. And I'm tired. I'm so tired." "That's enough," my father said, and there was something in his voice I'd never heard before. A kind of finality. A kind of resignation. "Kevin, your mother and I have talked about this. We've decided that we can't just stand by and watch your sister struggle. We're going to take a reverse mortgage on the house." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "What? A reverse mortgage?" "We can access the equity in the house. It won't be much, but it'll be enough to pay off Jenna's debts. And then we'll have some money left over for other things." "Dad, you can't do that. That's your house. That's the only asset you have. It's the only thing we have left. And we're willing to sacrifice it for our daughter." "Our daughter? Not our children. Our daughter." The words hit me like a physical blow, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. "So that's it?" I asked. "You're going to lose your house so Jenna can keep her apartment and her car and her lifestyle?" "We're not losing anything," my mother said. "We'll have the money. We'll be able to stay in the house for as long as we need to. And when we're gone, Jenna can have the house. She'll need somewhere to live." "She'll need somewhere to live? What about me?" "You have your own life, Kevin. You're a grown man. You can take care of yourself." "Take care of myself? I've been taking care of myself my whole life. I've been taking care of you. And this is how you treat me?" "Kevin, please," my father said, but his voice was so weak now, so defeated. "We're doing what we think is best." "What you think is best? That's what you always say. But it's never what's best for me. It's never what's best for anyone except Jenna." "That's not true," my mother said. "We love you both equally." "No, you don't. You've never loved us equally. You've loved Jenna more. You've always loved Jenna more. The words hung in the air between us, ugly and true. I could see it in their eyes, could see the recognition there, could see the shame they were trying so hard to hide. They knew I was right. They'd always known. But they'd never been willing to admit it. I'm leaving, I said. I'm not going to sit here and watch you destroy yourselves for her. Kevin, wait. No. I'm done. I'm done being the one who gets blamed for everything. I'm done being the one who always has to sacrifice. I'm done being your son. I stood up from the booth and walked out of the diner. I could hear my mother calling after me, could hear her voice breaking, but I didn't turn around. I got into my truck and I drove away, and I told myself that it was over. I told myself that I was finally free. I was wrong again. The reverse mortgage went through 6 weeks later. I found out about it from the lawyer who handled the paperwork, a friend of my father's who called me out of professional courtesy. He told me that my parents had taken out a loan against the house, that they'd used the money to pay off Jenna's debts, and that they'd put the house in Jenna's name. It's done, he said. There's nothing you can do about it. Did they even think about me? Did they even consider that maybe I had an interest in that house? I'm sorry, Kevin. I'm just the messenger. I hung up the phone and sat in my empty living room, staring at the bare walls and thinking about all the years I'd spent trying to be a good son. I'd worked so hard, sacrificed so much, tried so desperately to earn their love. And now this. Now I was being written out of the family entirely. I called Sarah that night, which was something I rarely did. She answered on the third ring, and I could hear the suspicion in her voice. Kevin? Is everything okay? Are the kids okay? The kids are fine. They're at school. I needed to talk to someone. About what? I told her everything. The savings. The debts. The reverse mortgage. The house in Jenna's name. I told her about all the years I'd spent being the family's safety net, the one who always had to clean up the messes, the one who never got any credit for anything. Kevin, she said when I was done, and there was a softness in her voice that I hadn't heard in years. Kevin, I'm so sorry. Sorry for what? Sorry for not seeing it sooner. Sorry for not understanding what you were going through. You divorced me. You left me. What's there to understand? I left because I was selfish, she said. Because I wanted things I didn't think you could give me. But you were always a good man, Kevin. You were always trying. I couldn't see it. Doesn't matter now. None of it matters. It matters. You matter. We talked for a while longer, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like someone actually saw me. Not the provider, not the safety net, not the responsible one. Just me. Just Kevin. But even that moment of connection couldn't undo what my parents had done. The reverse mortgage was a done deal. The house was in Jenna's name. And I was left with nothing but the memory of 10 years of savings that I'd never get back. The next year was the hardest of my life. I worked more hours than I ever had before, took on every piece of overtime I could get, and spent every spare moment trying to rebuild my savings. But it was slow going, and every time I looked at my bank account, I felt that familiar anger rising up in my throat. My mother kept calling, of course. She never stopped calling. But I stopped answering. I couldn't listen to her voice anymore. I couldn't hear her justify what they'd done. I couldn't take the guilt trips and the manipulation and the constant reminder that I wasn't the child they loved. My father tried to reach out a few times, but his calls were always awkward and halting, like he didn't really know what to say. I told him I was busy. I told him I'd call him back. I never did. I started seeing my kids more often, which was the only bright spot in an otherwise miserable year. Sarah had softened toward me, had started being more accommodating with visitation, and I took full advantage of it. I took them to the park and the movies and the zoo. I cooked them dinners and helped them with their homework and tucked them into bed at night. And every time I saw them, I thought about that house I'd wanted to buy. The one with the big backyard. The one where they could have their own rooms. The one I'd been saving for before Jenna's debts came along and ruined everything. I was still bitter. I was still angry. I was still haunted by the unfairness of it all. But I was starting to rebuild, starting to heal. And I was starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, I didn't need my parents' approval to be happy. Then the letter arrived. It was a thick envelope with a lawyer's return address, and for a moment I thought my father had finally decided to sue me for something, though I couldn't imagine what. I opened it with trembling hands, expecting the worst. Instead, I found a will. My father's will. It was dated 3 years ago, long before the reverse mortgage, long before Jenna's debts came to light. It was written on official letterhead from a law firm I'd never heard of, and it laid out my father's wishes in cold, legal language. The house was supposed to be mine. Not Jenna's. Mine. I read the document 3 times, not believing what I was seeing. The house, the furniture, the small life insurance policy, the savings bonds my father had accumulated over the years. All of it was supposed to go to me. All of it was supposed to be my inheritance. But the reverse mortgage had changed everything. The house was now in Jenna's name. The equity had been stripped away. And my father's will was worthless. I called the lawyer whose name was on the letterhead, and he confirmed what I already knew. Yes, the will was valid. Yes, my father had intended for me to inherit the house. But the reverse mortgage had been executed legally, and there was nothing anyone could do about it now. Unless, the lawyer said, his voice hesitant. Unless what? Unless the reverse mortgage was fraudulently obtained. What do you mean? I mean, if your father was coerced into signing it, or if he wasn't mentally competent at the time, there might be grounds to challenge it. I thought about my father. I thought about the way he'd seemed so weak and defeated during that last conversation at the diner. I thought about how my mother had been the one who did all the talking, how she'd been the one who pushed for the reverse mortgage, how my father had just sat there and nodded along like he didn't have a choice. I thought about how he'd always been so easy to manipulate. How my mother had been controlling him for as long as I could remember. How he'd always gone along with whatever she wanted, even when it meant sacrificing his own children. I need to think about this, I told the lawyer. I'll call you back. I hung up the phone and stared at the wall for a long time. I could challenge the reverse mortgage. I could take my parents to court. I could fight for what was rightfully mine. But I'd have to drag my family through the mud to do it. I'd have to prove that my mother had manipulated my father, that she'd coerced him into signing away his only asset. I'd have to dig up years of family drama and air it all out in a courtroom. I'd have to destroy whatever was left of my relationship with my parents and my sister. But I was already doing that. I was already estranged from them. I was already damaged beyond repair. What did I have to lose? I started doing my research. I contacted the lawyer and asked him to investigate the reverse mortgage. I dug through my father's old paperwork, finding bank statements and medical records and everything else I could get my hands on. What I found was damning. My father had been diagnosed with the early stages of dementia 2 years before the reverse mortgage was signed. He'd been taking medication for it, and his doctors had noted that he was easily confused and susceptible to manipulation. The diagnosis was right there in his medical records, clear as day. And my mother had known about it. She'd been at the appointments. She'd heard the doctors explain the condition. She'd seen the early signs of confusion and memory loss. But she'd still encouraged him to sign the reverse mortgage. She'd still pushed him to give away the house. She'd still taken advantage of his mental decline to help her favorite child. I called the lawyer back and told him what I'd found. "This is huge," he said. "This is proof that your father was not mentally competent at the time the reverse mortgage was signed. We can challenge the entire thing." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. I've seen cases like this before. If we can prove that he was coerced or that he didn't understand what he was signing, we can have the reverse mortgage declared void. Then let's do it. Let's take them to court." The lawyer was quiet for a moment. "Kevin, I need to be honest with you. This is going to be ugly. Your mother and sister are going to fight back. They're going to drag your name through the mud. They're going to make you out to be the bad guy. They already do. What's the difference? The difference is that this time, you're going to fight back. And that's going to make them angry. They're not used to you fighting back. Then it's about time they learned." We started the process of challenging the reverse mortgage. The lawyer sent a formal notice to the bank that had issued the loan, laying out the evidence and demanding that the mortgage be declared void. The bank responded by freezing the account and launching their own investigation. My mother called me the same day she received the notice. Her voice was shrill with rage. "Kevin, what have you done? I've done what I should have done years ago. I've started fighting back. Fighting back. You're destroying this family. You're destroying everything we built." "I'm not destroying anything. You and Jenna did that all on your own. Your father is sick. He doesn't need this kind of stress. He doesn't need you dragging him through court. Then why did you take advantage of his illness? Why did you push him to sign that reverse mortgage when you knew he wasn't capable of making that decision?" "I didn't push him into anything. He wanted to do it. He wanted to help Jenna. He wanted to help Jenna because you told him to. Because you manipulated him. Because you've been manipulating him for years. How dare you? How dare you accuse me of something like that?" "Mom, I have his medical records. I have proof that he was diagnosed with dementia before the reverse mortgage was signed. I have proof that he wasn't mentally competent. And I have proof that you knew about it all along." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. For a moment, I thought she'd hung up. "Kevin," she finally said, and her voice was so small, so defeated. "Kevin, please. Don't do this. Not to me. Not to your father. You should have thought about that before you stole my inheritance. Stole your inheritance. It was never your inheritance. It was your father's house. He could do whatever he wanted with it. He could have, yes. But he didn't want to give it to Jenna. He wanted to give it to me. I have the will to prove it. I have the paperwork that shows what he really wanted. Your father changed his mind. He wanted Jenna to have the house. He changed his mind because you convinced him to. Because you manipulated him. Because you took advantage of his illness. I didn't take advantage of anyone. Then why did you hide the diagnosis? Why did you never tell anyone that he had dementia? Why did you let everyone believe he was fine when he was clearly not? Because I was protecting him. Because I didn't want people to think he was crazy. Protecting him or protecting yourself. The line went dead. My mother had hung up on me. I sat in my truck and stared at the phone for a long time. My hands were shaking, and my heart was pounding, and I felt like I'd just run a marathon. But underneath all that adrenaline was a strange sense of calm. I'd finally said it. I'd finally told her the truth. I'd finally stopped being the dutiful son who kept his mouth shut and took the abuse. I was done being a doormat. I was done being used. I was done being the family's safety net. The court case took months. It was a long, drawn-out nightmare of depositions and hearings and legal motions. My mother and Jenna fought every step of the way, trying to make me look like a greedy son who just wanted to take advantage of his father's illness. But I had the evidence. I had the will. I had the medical records. I had everything I needed to prove that my father wasn't competent to sign the reverse mortgage. The judge saw through their arguments. On the final day of the hearing, she ruled in my favor. The reverse mortgage was declared void. The house was restored to my father's estate. And under the terms of the will, the house was supposed to go to me. My mother was furious. She stood up in the courtroom and screamed at me, calling me every name she could think of. She told me I was dead to her, that I'd never see her again, that she'd make sure my father never spoke to me again. I just sat there and took it. I'd been taking it my whole life. But this time, it didn't hurt. Because this time, I'd won. The house was sold 6 months later. I used the proceeds to buy a small house in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place I'd been dreaming about for years. It had a big backyard where my kids could play, and a screened-in porch where I could sit and drink my coffee on summer mornings, and a workshop in the basement where I could tinker with things. It wasn't the biggest house on the block. It wasn't the fanciest. But it was mine. And I'd earned it. My father passed away a year after the court case ended. He'd never recovered from the stress of the litigation, and his dementia had progressed to the point where he barely recognized anyone. My mother called me when he was in the hospital, her voice cold and formal. "Your father is dying. He wants to see you." "He wants to see me? Or you want me to come?" "Kevin, please. This is not the time for your petty grievances." "Petty grievances? You stole my inheritance. You manipulated my father. You treated me like a stranger for most of my life. And now you want me to come running to his bedside like nothing ever happened." "Kevin, your father is dying." I took a deep breath. "I'll be there." I went to the hospital, but I didn't go to see my mother. I went to say goodbye to my father. He was in a small room at the end of the hallway, hooked up to monitors and machines that were keeping him alive. He looked so small, so fragile, so unlike the strong man I remembered from my childhood. "Dad," I said, sitting down in the chair next to his bed. "I'm here." He opened his eyes, and for a moment, I saw recognition flash across his face. "Kevin. My son." "Yeah, Dad. It's me. Your mother told me what happened. She told me you took the house." "I didn't take anything, Dad. The house was always supposed to be mine. You wrote it in your will." "I remember," he said, and his voice was so faint I had to lean close to hear him. "I remember writing it. I wanted you to have it. I always wanted you to have it. Then why did you sign the reverse mortgage? Why did you give it to Jenna?" "Your mother, she convinced me. She said you didn't need it. She said you were doing fine on your own. She said Jenna needed help. But you didn't want to give it to her, did you?" "No," he said, and a tear rolled down his cheek. "No, I didn't. But your mother, she was so insistent. And I was so tired. I just wanted her to stop talking." "Dad, you didn't have to listen to her. You could have said no." "I know. I know I should have. But I was always afraid of your mother. She's always been so strong-willed. And I was just a weak man." "You weren't weak, Dad. You were just trying to keep the peace." "I failed you," he said. "I failed you as a father. I should have protected you. I should have stood up for you. But I never did. I just let your mother walk all over you. It's okay, Dad. I'm okay. No, he said. No, it's not okay. None of it is okay. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. He reached out and took my hand, his grip so weak I could barely feel it. Promise me something, Kevin. Promise me you'll take care of yourself. Promise me you won't let your mother and sister walk all over you anymore. I promise. And promise me you'll be happy. Promise me you'll find a way to be happy. I promise, Dad. I'll try. He smiled, and for a moment, he looked like the father I remembered from my childhood. The one who used to take me fishing and teach me how to throw a baseball. The one who told me he was proud of me. I love you, son, he said. I always have. Even when I didn't show it. Even when I was too weak to say it. I love you too, Dad. He closed his eyes, and the monitors started beeping. The nurses rushed in, and I was pushed out of the room. I stood in the hallway and watched through the window as they tried to revive him, tried to bring him back. But it was too late. My father was gone. After the funeral, my mother pulled me aside. She was still in her black dress, her face streaked with tears, but her eyes were hard and cold. You have no idea what you've done, she said. You have no idea how much you've hurt me. What I've done. Mom, I didn't do anything. I just fought for what was right. You destroyed this family. You destroyed everything your father and I built. You destroyed it, Mom. You and Jenna. You destroyed it when you stole my inheritance. You destroyed it when you manipulated Dad. You destroyed it when you made me the bad guy for standing up for myself. Don't you dare blame me for this. Don't you dare. You took advantage of a sick man to help your favorite child. And you did it without any regard for me. You didn't care about me. You never have. That's not true. Isn't it? When was the last time you asked me how I was doing? When was the last time you helped me with anything? When was the last time you treated me like I mattered? Kevin. Save it, Mom. I don't want to hear it. I've spent my whole life being the one who gets blamed for everything. And I'm done. I'm done taking it. I never blamed you for anything. Yes, you did. You blamed me for everything. You blamed me for not being good enough. You blamed me for not being Jenna. You blamed me for every single thing that ever went wrong in this family. I walked away from her, and I didn't look back. I could hear her calling after me, but I didn't care. I was done. Finally, truly done. It's been 3 years since my father died. I still think about him sometimes, about all the things I wish I'd said when I had the chance. I wish I'd told him that I understood, that I didn't blame him for being weak. I wish I'd told him that I was proud of him for finally apologizing, for finally admitting that he'd failed me. But I didn't. And now he's gone. My mother and I haven't spoken since the funeral. She tried to call a few times, but I never answered. I heard through the grapevine that she and Jenna had a falling out, that Jenna had moved away and stopped calling. I don't know if it's true. I don't really care. I have a new life now. I have my house and my kids and my job. I have a girlfriend who treats me like I actually matter, like I'm more than just a provider. I have friends who see me for who I really am. And I have my savings back. It took years, but I finally rebuilt what I lost. It's not a huge amount, not the fortune I'd been hoping for, but it's enough. It's enough to give me security, to give me options, to give me the freedom to make choices for myself instead of for my family. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd just given them the money. If I'd handed over my savings and let them do whatever they wanted. I think about all the years of guilt and manipulation and emotional abuse that I might have avoided. But then I remember what my father said on his deathbed. I remember that he wanted me to be happy. I remember that he wanted me to stand up for myself. And I know I made the right choice. Because sometimes, the only way to save yourself is to let go of the people who are holding you down. Sometimes, the only way to find peace is to walk away from the people who refuse to give it to you. I gave everything I had to my family. I gave them my time and my energy and my money and my love. I gave them everything I could give, and they took it all without giving anything back. But that's over now. I'm done giving. I'm done being used. I'm done being the family's safety net. I'm finally free.